Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching World Report on News 6 World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump has said that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet approved the US-brokered peace proposal aimed at ending the war with Russia. Talks in Florida have wrapped up after 3 days, but Trump has expressed disappointment that Zelensky has not reviewed the plan. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that talks with US representatives on a peace plan have been constructive, though not easy. He is also set to meet European leaders and officials from the UK, France, and Germany today. US President Donald Trump has said that trade talks with Canada are ongoing, adding we'll work it out. He's met on Friday with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum to discuss the US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement ahead of its 2026 review. India's aviation regulator DGCA has granted Indigo Airlines a one-time 24-hour extension to respond to a show cause notice issued on December 6. The regulator has warned that failure to comply by 6 p.m. on December 8 could lead to ex parte action. Thailand has launched airstrikes on Cambodian military facilities after both sides accused each other of violating a Trump-brokered ceasefire, with one Thai soldier killed and 4 wounded amid heavy border clashes. As Bangkok says, 385,000 civilians are being evacuated while Cambodia denies retaliation. Hong Kong's election saw a near record low turnout of 31.9% amid public fury over a blaze that killed at least 159 people. The turnout only barely exceeded the previous election as anger towards China-backed authorities have intensified. Chinese local carrier Guizhou Airlines has launched a direct route linking Guiyang, capital of southwest China's Guizhou province, with Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, further expanding China's air links with fast-growing ASEAN markets amid rising regional travel and trade. An Australian firefighter has died after being struck by a tree while battling a bushfire north of Sydney. More than 50 fires are burning across New South Wales, with authorities warning of a high-risk bushfire season this summer. Now for this hour, we start from US. US President Donald Trump has said that his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, is not willing to sign off on the US-brokered peace proposal, which is aimed at ending the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. His comments have come after the talks between Washington and Kyiv officials ended on Saturday after a 3-day thorough deliberation in Florida. Moreover, the US president has also claimed that Zelensky has not even read the revised proposal yet, and that he was quite disappointed about it. Let's listen in.
And I have to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that President Zelensky hasn't yet read the proposal. That was as of a few hours ago. His people love it, but he hasn't. Russia's fine with it. Russia, I guess, would rather have the whole country when you think of it. But Russia is, I believe, fine with it. But I'm not sure that Zelensky is fine with it. His people love it. But
meanwhile, the Ukrainian president has called this latest string of discussions constructive, although not easy. Let's listen in.
Вчора ми говорили зі Стівеном Віткофом та Джаредом Кушнером. Я дякую за готовність працювати разом 24/7. Американські представники знають базові українські позиції. Це була розмова конструктивна, хоч і непроста. Продовжуємо працювати. Деякі речі можна обговорити тільки особисто. Уміров, Гнатов доповідатимуть мені. Також я буду говорити з лідерами Європи. У нас заплановані зустрічі в Лондоні, а також в Брюсселі.
Now, Zelensky is reportedly expected to meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the leaders of France and Germany as well in London later today. The talks among them are set to focus on the recent Florida negotiations, which took place between the US and Ukraine. It is important to note that the UK's Prime Minister has repeatedly stressed that Ukraine must be allowed to determine its own future and that a European peacekeeping force is vital for guaranteeing complete security of Ukraine. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Matthew Adam. He's an American journalist and author, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew, for joining us again. Good to see you.
No problem.
Thank you. Now, what's your analysis on the alignment? How do you think how aligned are Ukraine and U.S. now?
I don't think they're aligned at all. I think that President Trump is a salesman, a very good salesman, and that he always speaks positively of his projects. And I think that he is hoping that by raising positive expectations that the Ukrainians will agree to the peace proposal. But I think the most serious stumbling block remains the fact that the United States government wants Ukraine to agree to cede some of the territory officially to Russia that it has lost through military conquest. And I find it hard to believe that Zelensky's people, as he put it, are enthusiastic about the plan, and yet President Zelensky hasn't actually read it yet. These things strike me as incongruent, and I think President Trump is just doing his best to be optimistic and to try to sell people on the deal. But I don't think that the Ukrainians are sold on the deal yet, and I think that as long as it requires them to give up territory of theirs that they lost through Russian military conquest, they're not going to agree to a deal. So, we only know what the two sides are telling us through the media right now. They haven't issued the two sides haven't, Ukraine and the United States haven't issued a joint communique or anything, or a press statement saying where they stand. So all we know is what President Trump tells reporters and what other people other government officials tell reporters, usually anonymously. So we don't really know what's going on. But I think President Trump is just trying to stay optimistic and trying to put his best face forward right now. And it doesn't sound like there's any concrete evidence that Ukraine is going to budge from its current insistence on regaining the territory that it lost to Russia.
Right, and how might differing U.S.-Ukrainian differing perspectives and also expectations and pressure by the Western allies, including the ones who are set to meet Zelensky today. How do you think this will be affecting the peace proposal moving forward?
The fact that what happened today?
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but Western leaders are supposed to meet with Zelensky today.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
they're going to. Right. Sure. They're going to be able to flesh out how President Zelensky really feels about the proposal, and it depends how weary of war they are. And I think the person at the moment who seems to be most weary of the war is a party that's not affected directly. That's the United States, and for the life of me, I don't know why President Trump, whom I personally am largely supportive of, I don't know why he's willing to give up so much to Russia. Will European and world leaders talking to Ukrainian President Zelensky change things? Only, I guess, if they're willing to say that they're no longer interested in sending him, money and military supplies, then President Zelensky may be forced to come to some sort of an accommodation with Russia, but I'm just not convinced that I just can't foresee that happening unless something dramatically changes in the the geopolitical power equation. I just don't see it happening right now, and
Yes.
we're gonna have to wait longer and see what happens.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. The Kremlin has welcomed US President Donald Trump's new national security strategy, saying that it majorly aligns with Russia's own perceptions on several issues, including a peaceful settlement for Ukraine. The national security strategy, has signed by the US president, mentions ending the war in Ukraine as US core interest and that the US wants to re-establish strategic stability with Russia, and also puts an end to the labels, calling it a direct threat. Speaking on the matter, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has stated that while the strategy corresponds with Russia's vision, it would be essential to monitor how it is implemented in reality. Let's listen in.
Нынешняя администрация коренным образом отличается от предыдущих. И, конечно, сейчас президент Трамп силен с точки зрения внутриполитических позиций, и это дает ему возможность корректировать в соответствии со своим видением концепцию. Те корректировки, которые мы видим, я бы сказал, они соответствуют во многом и нашему видению. И, наверное, можно надеяться на то, что это может быть таким скромным залогом того, что удастся конструктивно продолжить совместную работу над поисками мирного урегулирования по Украине, как минимум.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Matthew Vadam. He's an American journalist and author, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew, for staying with us. Now, as we were talking, we can only speculate here, but once again, why do you think President Trump is kind of more aligned with Russia, as even after releasing these the papers, national security strategy, Russia has commented that some of them align closely with Russia's perceptions and on several issues?
Well, I don't really understand it, because he's against Russia in other respects. You know that he's imposed tariffs and other measures on India to try to persuade India to stop buying Russian oil, on the theory that the Russians are going to use the money that India pays them to fund their war in Ukraine. So in that sense, he's acting against Russia. And then in the negotiations, he seems to be willing to give a lot, willing to concede a lot to the Russians. Again, the big sticking point is territory, and I don't think Ukraine is going to be willing to give up the territory that it lost through conquest to Russia. And it could be just that Trump sees himself as a peacemaker, and he's tired of this war, and he's tired of pressure for the United States to keep sending billions and billions and billions of dollars in U.S. aid, and he doesn't like the pressure that he's getting from his own activists in his own party, who are, I think most of them are supportive of Ukraine, but there is a large vocal minority that's supportive of Russia and wants the United States to wash its hands of the whole affair entirely. So, I can't really speak to Trump's motivations. Some people have some more cynical sources in the media have suggested that Trump's negotiators, Witkoff and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, are trying to set up business deals in the region, and I'm not sure if that's true. Sounds like a conspiracy theory to me, but it's possible, though it seems unlikely. I think that President Trump thinks of himself as a deal maker, the great deal maker, the author of the best-selling book, The Art of the Deal, and he thinks that he can accomplish things, and he's set his mind on ending the Russia-Ukraine war. And I think that he believes, I suspect that he believes that it's easier to push Ukraine to give in to Russian, to give in to not all, but to give in to a lot of Russian demands than it would be to get Russia to give in to Ukrainian demands. I think he thinks Ukraine is the weak horse here, and he wants to back, he's backing the strong horse to an extent in order to end the war and, you know, make himself reinforce this idea that he's the, you know, that he's the greatest deal maker in the world.
Yes, and
Yes,
Mr. Matthew, you know, talking about conspiracy, not just you, but a lot of our guests in the show in NewsX World have mentioned about the fact that they also think, or they think that this is a business deal, or rather business deal, more of a business deal prioritized over peacemaking, peace or ceasefire deal. So, you know, talking about this, why do you think there was no other envoy or no other diplomat in U.S. In Trump's eyes to send instead of his son-in-law Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff for the talks, for the peace talks?
Yeah, you know, maybe that is why he sent them, though Jared Kushner was instrumental in negotiating the Abraham Accords during President Trump's first administration that won all sorts of concessions for Israel, got various Muslim countries to establish diplomatic relations with, you know, and improve their relations with Israel, and, you know, started, I guess you could say, an era of good feelings between a whole bunch of Muslim countries and Israel.
Yes.
And so I can see why he would want Jared Kushner there. Whether Kushner and Witkoff are trying to make their own business deals, I regret that I'm not privy to that information. But I think that really what President Trump should do is what's in the best interests of you know, of our ally, and that is, or at least I'm not sure if Ukraine is a formal ally, but it's certainly more of an ally than Russia is, and I don't know why he's not doing more to help to support Russia in these peace talks, and you know, it's a real head scratcher for me.
Yes. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Matthew Adam for joining us today and sharing that insight from Washington, D.C. Now we stay in the region. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that trade talks with Canada are ongoing, but did not give details, telling reporters we'll work it out on Friday. And Trump has met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum for about a half an hour after they jointly hosted the 2026 World Cup draw. Let's listen in to U.S. President Donald Trump's comments.
Mexico and Canada, we met with the as you know, I mean, it was pretty well, a lot of people were here, right here we met. And the Prime Minister of Canada, President of Mexico, and we spoke for a half hour. Very good, very productive, talked mostly trade. I have a great relationship with Canada. They're very tough traders, but I have a very good relationship with the Prime Minister and with Canada. The problem is Canada makes a lot of things that we don't need because we make them also. But we'll work it out. Canada's a special place, and they really are good at ice hockey, aren't they?
The discussions come ahead of the mandatory 2026 review of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, rising U.S. tariffs, and calls to renegotiate or withdraw from the pact that have already added tensions. Trump has previously met Carney in October, but suspended talks after Ontario aired an ad quoting former President Ronald Reagan on tariffs and threatened higher duties on Canadian imports, though none have been imposed yet. Now we move on. The United States is preparing to roll out a long-anticipated $12 billion farm aid package on Monday aimed at supporting farmers affected by low crop prices and ongoing trade-related pressures. According to reports, President Donald Trump will unveil the plan at an event attended by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. Meanwhile, China's demand for soybeans continues to surge. Customs data shows that soybean imports in November has reached 8.11 million tons, the highest November level since 2021 and up more than 13% from a year earlier. For the first 11 months of the year, imports climbed nearly 7% to 103.79 million tons, putting China on track for a record year. Analysts expect full-year imports to reach 110 to 112 million tons in 2025, driven largely by strong buying from Brazil and renewed U.S. arrivals. State grain buyer COFCO has purchased about 2.7 million tons of U.S. soybeans since late October, following a thaw in trade tensions, though the figure still falls short of Washington's year-end target. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has since suggested that the deadline may be extended to late February, while China has yet to confirm the final purchase schedule. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Jayjit Bhattacharya. He's an economist and finance expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Dr. Jayjit, for staying with us and joining us again. Now, what more can you tell us about this U.S. trade with China, as well as on soybean farming?
Yeah, U.S. grows about roughly 130 million tons of soya. And the farmers who are growing the soya are the key constituencies of the Trump administration. And one of the promises of the Trump administration was to uplift the conditions and the realizations for the farmers from whatever they're growing, which is primarily soya in this particular case. And therefore, the whole premise of Trump putting in the raft of tariffs that they did was in order to help the American crop growers, the American farmers, and the American manufacturers. Now, none of that, unfortunately, has come out to be true. As was predicted by most economists, that the outcome of this trade war will be very debilitating for the US economy and for the US farmers. We see that the impact on the US farmers is showing up. In a retaliatory move, what China did was stop purchasing from US. And if you look at the export statistics of soya from Brazil, that has jumped up by 64% because China started importing from Brazil and from Argentina. And therefore, there has been a fundamental shift in trade between the US and China, and almost a permanent impact on the farmers of the Midwest of US. Now, obviously, as we had heard, or as was declared by US, that China has entered into an agreement and has promised to buy 25 million tons of soya from the US. But we don't see that happening, and we never heard that being confirmed by the Chinese either. It was only a declaration that the US government gave. So we're not entirely sure whether China did ever promise to pick up 25 million tons of soya from the US, and specifically in the backdrop that there has been no larger trade agreement that the US has entered into with China. And more importantly, if China is getting cheaper soya from Argentina and from Brazil, then why wouldn't they buy that? That makes more sense for them. The outcome of this interaction or this situation has been that the farmers at the peak of the harvest in US are facing a situation where there is no takers for their crop, because out of 125 million tons that they were growing, 25 million was going to China. Many of the farmers can face bankruptcy because soya growing is a large industrial enterprise. It requires tremendous amount of inputs. It's a very expensive proposition, and if the farmers are not able to get their realization and get it in time, it will lead to bankruptcy. They will not be able to pay back the loans they have taken, and recover the cost of inputs that they put into the farm. And therefore, what the US administration is doing is providing them with support from US taxpayers' money. And so the rest of the US taxpayers are paying $2 billion supposedly to the farmers to get them out of the sticky situation that they are in because of the policies of the US administration.
And how do you think, how could this uncertain timeline by China affect US soybean purchases?
So, as we have seen in the past, when China promises something, and I'm underlining the word promise, it is not an agreement. It is not bound by anything. And we have never seen China following up on those promises, be it in a trade side, be it in the military side. And that's perhaps the way the Chinese administration operates. So I think the uncertainty will continue. I don't see China going back and picking up any of the soya that they had promised, apparently, because the Chinese never went and said that they are going to buy, that they are promising to buy the soya. It was only the US administration which claims so. So I don't see in the short run that the Chinese will be going back and buying any of the soya or any of the other agricultural produce, including corn from the US. Having said that, the Brazilian corn is also not available because the demand within Brazil has gone up significantly because of corn-based ethanol and other requirements in terms of meat production, where some of the corn is getting diverted to. So the amount of corn that Brazil is exporting is also reduced. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamics in the corn trade. But in terms of soya trade, it's quite clear. There's enough soya available from non-US sources. China would prefer to buy soya from those sources. China would like to ensure that its supply chain of soya, which is very critical for its food security, is maintained, and they would be hesitant to go back to a not dependable partner in US, and therefore they would stick to Brazilian and Argentinian suppliers who are not only more dependable, but also their prices.
Yes, indeed. Doctor, with that, I would like to thank Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to India, Indigo's operational disruptions continue to deepen, with 3,900 flights cancelled over the last 6 days. Daily cancellations have spiked sharply, starting with 200 flights on 2nd December, 150 plus on the 3rd, and 550 flights on the 4th December, and a massive 1,600 flights on 5th December. This was followed by 800 plus cancellations on the 6th and around 650 on the 7th. Today, on 8th December, the trend persists, with 300 plus additional cancellations, including major impacts across key airports. Delhi's IGI airport reported 134 cancellations, 75 departures and 59 arrivals. Hyderabad's RGIA saw 77 Indigo flights disrupted, split across 38 arrivals and 39 departures, while 16 cancellations were reported from Srinagar. All this comes as the DGCA imposes a firm deadline of 6 p.m. today, 8 December, giving Indigo a one-time 24-hour extension to respond to its show cause notice. The regulator warns that failure to provide a comprehensive reply will result in it proceeding ex parte, reaffirming its commitment to passenger safety and regulatory compliance. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Brian Thomas. He's a correspondent from NewsX World. Thank you very much, Brian, for joining us and waiting for us. What more can you tell us about this unfolding situation with Indigo Airlines?
Well, Asuma, clearly as of now, we are at the IG Airport, Terminal 1, and the situation still remains grim itself. This is the 6th day where the Indigo is facing disruptions and passengers are left stranded. They are helpless. Now, what you see are these charts that have been played out here. You can see there are many flights of Indigo cancelled. Indigo Dehradun is cancelled, Indigo Patna, Nashik, These are all cancelled itself. The Hyderabad flight, the Indore flight, the Varanasi is delayed itself. The Ahmedabad is cancelled. So there have been more than 300 to 400 flights today that has been cancelled itself. For the past 6 days, more than 3,000 flights have been cancelled, and people are distressed. People are agitated, people are frustrated, they have to meet their loved ones, and there are different reasons why people are opting to choose airlines, because it's a faster medium. Now when they feel helpless, they're not getting much help from it. A Bangalore flight, the Hyderabad flight, all these flights have been delayed. Again, a very important visual that we would also be showing you, the fact that there is luggage area. So here is the inside of the terminal, and when you see these visuals, you get an understanding of the fact that there have been tons and thousands of luggage that are just left stranded. Now the reason of these luggage, there are many passengers who might have taken an alternate route, have taken road journeys, who have got an alternate flight, or just left everything and gone at their own expense somewhere. But their luggages are still there, and they are still struggling to get their luggages done. Now Indigo has apparently hired a third party who are managing these luggages. What they'll be doing is they'll be checking the tags, the boarding tags, the luggage tags. They will be contacting the passengers itself, and then the luggages will be sent back to their respective residence address. Now very importantly, there can be important items, can be medicines, can be other very important items that these luggages have been. I'll request my camera person Sudhir to just pan around and just show you the fact that there is ample number of thousands of luggages just stranded here. There might be important items that have been here itself, but the people still are helpless at this situation, at this dire situation, and this is the 6th day itself. As the situation is, is getting better slowly, but still there are many passengers who we have been talking to are left nowhere to be. They are getting no help. They feel helpless. They feel stranded. So this is the situation that we are reporting from IGI Terminal 1. Yes.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Brian Thomas for joining us and giving that a reality check on the ground from the airport in India. Thank you very much. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.